Broadcasting live from the Albay PIO News Center, providing you the most exclusive news update from all over the province. This is News at 12. In the local scene, the Australian Embassy is exploring a partnership with the provincial government of Albay to boost agriculture and strengthen climate resilience. Seven embassy representatives met with Governor Noel Rizal and provincial officials to discuss innovation, technology, and training in agriculture. Provincial agriculturist Cheryl Rebeta outlined programs supporting farmers through modern practices and sustainable production. Both sides agreed to continue talks to identify specific projects that can help improve local livelihoods and food security. In other story, the provincial government of Albay is showcasing Bicolano creativity through the exhibit Arte Bicolnon Creativity on Abaca Canvas at the National Museum of the Philippines, Bicol in Daraga. The event, organized by the Provincial Tourism, Culture and Arts Office, highlights local artists and their role in preserving Bicol's cultural identity. The exhibit runs until October 30 and features artworks that capture the region's rich heritage and traditions. Albay continues to promote arts and culture as key to nurturing local art talents and strengthening community pride. In other news, the Albay Public Safety and Emergency Management Office is intensifying coordination efforts to strengthen the province's emergency preparedness and response. Following the Provincial Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council's directive, OPSEMO is preparing for a scenario-based drill, simulating earthquakes, tsunamis, landslides, structural failures, and fire evacuations. The office has been meeting with local disaster offices, malls, schools, and hospitals to coordinate response measures and safety protocols. The latest meeting gathered representatives from more than 10 public and private hospitals across the province. OPSEMO said coordination will continue with hotels, religious groups, and other key establishments as part of its ongoing preparedness initiatives. In the national scene, the Department of Environment and Natural Resources is urging the implementation of sustainable flood control projects as flooding becomes more frequent across the country. The agency is developing a nationwide flood management master plan that promotes watershed management, stormwater storage, and the reuse of floodwater for irrigation and hydropower. A key feature of the plan is the use of the green-gray infrastructure, combining engineered flood defenses with natural systems like mangroves for more effective protection. It also calls for risk-sensitive and use planning to stop construction in flood-prone areas and strengthen zoning laws using hazard maps. The Department of Environment and Natural Resources is monitoring project's progress through its regional offices and satellite imagery to ensure proper coordination with national water management goals. Local governments are also contributing by setting up rainwater harvesting systems and preserving open spaces to reduce runoff during heavy rains. The Department of Environment and Natural Resources aims to roll out innovative and sustainable flood management projects by 2026 to help communities adapt to worsening flood risks. In other story, the Department of Justice has clarified that no assets belonging to elected officials have been frozen in connection with the alleged flood control fund anomalies. Justice Undersecretary Jez Hermogenes Andres said that only private individuals have had their assets frozen so far. He also denied the social media claims that senators or former lawmakers were affected, calling them false. The clarification contradicts earlier statements by former Justice Secretary Jesus Crispin Remulla, who said that the Anti-Money Laundering Council has secured court orders to freeze the assets of Senators Joel Villanueva and Jingo Estrada and former Ako Bicol Representative Saldico. Andres assured that the ongoing investigation is being handled carefully and that any move to freeze assets of politicians will be based on verified evidence. In other news, around 25,300 police officers will be deployed nationwide to ensure public safety during the observance of UNDAS 2025. The Philippine National Police announced Tuesday. This deployment is part of the PNP's comprehensive preparations for All Saints' Day and All Souls' Day. On October 31, all police units across the country will be placed on full alert status, with regional officers instructed to increase visibility and support operations in high-traffic areas such as cemeteries, transport terminals, and major roads. In addition to PNP officers, over 22,000 force multipliers, which include barangay tanods, radio groups, and other non-government organizations, will assist in the operations. This brings the total number of personnel involved to more than 56,000. Although no credible threats have been identified, authorities are maintaining heightened vigilance. To assist the public, the PNP has established 5,293 police assistance desks nationwide aimed at providing information, helping travelers, and responding promptly to emergencies. With large crowds expected at cemeteries and transport hubs, the PNP is urging the public to remain alert and take precautions against petty crimes such as pickpocketing. And in the news outside the country, United States President Donald Trump has warned Hamas that it will be wiped out if it breaks the current ceasefire in Gaza. His comments come as Vice President J.D. Vance arrived in Israel on Tuesday to show U.S. support for the fragile truce and meet with Israeli officials. Vance is scheduled to meet Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Wednesday in Jerusalem, along with Trump's special envoys Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner. The visit follows a deadly clash in Rafah over the weekend, where Israel says Hamas killed 2 soldiers. In response, Israel's airstrikes killed 45 Palestinians, according to Gaza's health ministry. Despite the violence, both Israel and Hamas said they are still committed to the U.S.-brokered ceasefire. On Monday, Hamas returned the body of another hostage, making it 13 out of 28 promised handovers. Qatar, a key mediator, has accused Israel of violating the truce. Hamas leaders said they are doing their best to recover the remaining hostage bodies, but are facing major challenges due to heavy destruction in Gaza. The U.S. is stepping up for efforts to keep the ceasefire in place as tensions remain high. In other story, Japan made history on Tuesday by appointing its first female Prime Minister, Sanai Takaichi. Known for her hawkish stance on China and conservative views, she secured the position through an 11th-hour coalition deal. Takaichi becomes Japan's 5th prime minister in as many years, leading a minority government facing significant challenges, including an upcoming visit from U.S. President Donald Trump. In the lower house, she narrowly won a majority in the first round of voting. The 64-year-old stood and bowed several times in acknowledgement to lawmakers, and the upper house also approved her after a runoff vote. She will formally take office following a meeting with the emperor. It can be recalled that she was elected leader of the Liberal Democratic Party on October 4. The party, which has governed Japan almost continuously for decades, is currently losing support. 6 days later, the Komeito party withdrew from the coalition over concerns about her conservative views and an LDP's fund scandal. This forced her to ally with the reformist, right-leaning Japan Innovation Party, finalizing the agreement on Monday evening. The Japan Innovation Party supports cutting the consumption tax on food to zero, banning corporate donations, and reducing the number of parliamentary seats. Takeichi pledged to strengthen Japan's economy and reshape the country to be responsible for future generations. And finally, in the news outside the country, Ukrainian lawmaker Alexei Vasilenko has proposed that the Philippines appoint a special trade envoy to help strengthen economic ties between the two countries. Senator Erwin Tulfo shared this after meeting with Ukrainian parliament members during the 151st Inter-Parliamentary Union Assembly in Geneva, where they discussed potential partnerships in defense, trade, and agriculture. Vasilenko noted that the deeper trade ties could support Ukraine's economic recovery and improve the Philippines' access to the European Union market. Tulfo also met with Ukraine's first Deputy Parliament Chairperson, Alexander Korniyenko, and MP Alexander Satchenko, assuring them he would bring their proposals to President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. He reaffirmed that the Philippines' support for Ukraine amid its conflict with Russia and drew parallels to the Philippines' territorial issue in the South China Sea. Tulfo expressed hope for successful peace talks, citing the war's global economic impact, particularly on fuel and wheat prices. And that's all for the news of 12 October 23, 2025. We'll be back tomorrow for more news updates. Thanks to our news writer, Albay PIO and Naomi Ruth Hernandez. And on the technical side, Ted Bobbis. Our Provincial Information Officer, OIC Marty Gonzalez. And under the supervision of our Governor, Noel E. Rizal, I am Greg Hallare. Thank you for subscribing.